The Galactic Council had been watching Earth for 3,000 years, treating humanity like children playing with sticks while the adults discussed real matters. They saw our nuclear weapons as crude toys, our space exploration as baby steps, our conflicts as the tantrums of an immature species not yet ready for the cosmic stage. They were wrong. What they didn't know was that humanity had been watching them back. Every secret council meeting, every classified technology exchange, every whispered conversation about the primitive humans had been recorded, analyzed, and stored in databases hidden in the dark matter streams that the Council's most advanced sensors couldn't detect. For 50 years, Earth's greatest minds have been working in absolute secrecy, not in underground bunkers or hidden laboratories, but in structures built from dark matter itself. Invisible cities floating between dimensions, shipyards constructing vessels from the universe's most abundant yet undetectable substance, weapons that could reshape reality at the quantum level. The Council thought they were the apex of galactic civilization. They measured power in terms of energy weapons, shield strength, and fleet size. They never imagined that while they were playing war games with conventional matter, humanity had been building an empire in the shadows of existence itself. Now, as the Council prepares to deliver their ultimatum to Earth, submit to galactic law or face correction, they have no idea that humanity's response won't come from the blue marble they've been watching. It will emerge from the dark matter networks that surround every Council world, every military installation, every center of galactic power. The humans they dismissed as primitives are about to teach the galaxy a lesson that will echo through the cosmos for millennia. Never underestimate a species that learned to survive by thinking differently. The Galactic Council never saw it coming. But then, again, they were never meant to. Dr. Sarah Chun had always been the type of person who noticed things others missed. As a child, she spotted patterns in seemingly random data that confused her teachers. As a graduate student, she discovered mathematical inconsistencies in established theories that her professors initially dismissed as calculation errors. Now, at 35, as the head of CERN's most classified research division, she was about to make a discovery that would change humanity's place in the universe forever. The morning of the discovery began like any other. Sarah arrived at the underground facility at 4 a.m., 2 hours before her team, carrying her usual thermos of coffee and a mind buzzing with equations from the previous night's work. The Large Hadron Collider had been running specialized experiments for 6 months, searching for evidence of dark matter interactions that conventional sensors couldn't detect. Most of the scientific community believed they were chasing shadows, but Sarah had a different theory. Dark matter wasn't just invisible matter floating through space. It was structured, organized. In some cases, it appeared to be artificial. The data from the night's run was waiting on her workstation, and as Sarah scrolled through the particle collision results, her coffee grew cold. There, buried in terabytes of quantum signatures, was proof of something that shouldn't exist. Dark matter wasn't just responding to gravitational forces. It was responding to electromagnetic signals. Specifically, it was responding to electromagnetic signals from outside Earth's solar system. Sarah's hands trembled as she isolated the signal patterns. The dark matter in Earth's vicinity was receiving structured transmissions and responding with equally structured feedback. It was a communication network, spanning vast distances through space, completely invisible to conventional detection methods. But more disturbing was what the network was communicating about. Earth, humanity, military assessments, population counts, technological capabilities. Someone was using dark matter itself as a surveillance network, and they had been watching humanity for a very long time. Sarah spent the next 18 hours in isolation, running verification tests and cross-referencing data from radio telescopes, gravitational wave detectors, and quantum sensors around the globe. Every test confirmed the same impossible truth. The galaxy was filled with artificial dark matter constructs, and they were all connected in a vast information network that treated Earth's solar system like a laboratory specimen under constant observation. But there was something else in the data. something that made Sarah's blood run cold. The Watchers weren't just observing. They were planning. Deep within the dark matter communication streams, Sarah found transmission patterns that matched every known military communication protocol. Deployment schedules, resource allocation reports, tactical assessments, all focused on one target system, Earth's solar system. By the time Sarah's team arrived the next morning, she had already initiated Protocol 7, CERN's most extreme security measure. The facility went into complete lockdown. All external communications were severed. Even the coffee machines were disconnected from the network. Sarah gathered her 5 most trusted researchers in the main conference room and shared what she had discovered. Dr. James Morrison, the theoretical physicist, spoke first. His voice was barely a whisper. "You're saying we're living inside some kind of galactic zoo, and the zookeepers are about to clean our cage?" Sarah nodded grimly. "That's exactly what I'm saying. But there's more." She pulled up a new set of data on the main screen. The dark matter network isn't just transmitting information about us. It's also receiving transmissions from Earth, specifically from locations that don't appear on any government database. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Dr. Lisa Park, the quantum engineer, leaned forward. "Are you suggesting that someone on Earth has been secretly communicating through dark matter networks?" "I'm not suggesting it," Sarah replied. "I'm stating it as fact. Someone has been using this network to send and receive messages for at least 50 years. And based on the transmission patterns, they've been doing it from multiple locations simultaneously." Sarah activated another display showing a global map dotted with transmission points. But these weren't random locations. They were precisely positioned to create geometric patterns that covered the entire planet in a web of dark matter communication nodes. Dr. Morrison stood up slowly, his face pale. "The coverage pattern, it's designed for maximum efficiency. Someone has been building a planetary communication network using technology that shouldn't exist." Sarah nodded. "And if they can communicate through dark matter, what else can they do with it?" The question hung in the air like a challenge to everything they thought they knew about physics, technology, and humanity's place in the universe. Over the next 3 days, Sarah's team worked in complete secrecy to decode the Earth-based transmissions. What they found defied explanation. The signals weren't coming from government facilities, military installations, or any known research center. They were originating from empty space. Specifically, from coordinates in Earth's orbit where nothing existed according to any tracking system. But the dark matter was there, concentrated into structures so dense they created their own gravitational signatures, yet remained completely invisible to every sensor humanity had ever built. Sarah realized they weren't looking at communication networks. They were looking at structures, buildings, possibly entire cities built from dark matter, orbiting Earth in perfect stealth. The transmission patterns became clearer once they understood what they were looking at. The hidden structures weren't just monitoring the Galactic Watchers. They were analyzing their technology, mapping their networks, and preparing countermeasures for something the galactic observers hadn't detected. On the 4th day, Sarah made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. She sent a signal. Using CERN's most powerful transmitters, modified to interact with dark matter particles, she broadcast a simple mathematical sequence toward the nearest Earth-based dark matter structure, a progression that any intelligence would recognize as artificially created. The response came within minutes, not as radio waves or particle beams, but as a direct modification to the quantum state of every atom in Sarah's laboratory. For exactly 30 seconds, the laws of physics bent around her team. Gravity fluctuated. Light took on properties it shouldn't have. Matter became temporarily transparent. Then, everything returned to normal, except for one thing. A message appeared on every screen in the facility, written in perfect English. "Dr. Chun, we have been waiting for someone to find us. Please remain calm. A representative will arrive shortly to explain everything. What you have discovered is only the beginning." Sarah looked around at her terrified team and realized that their world had just become infinitely larger and more dangerous. The Galactic Watchers were real. The hidden structures were real. And humanity, it seemed, had guardians they never knew existed. The next morning, Sarah arrived at CERN to find a woman waiting in her office. She appeared to be in her 50s, with graying hair and kind eyes, wearing a simple business suit. Nothing about her seemed unusual except for one detail that made Sarah's heart race. She was sitting in a chair that hadn't been there the night before. A chair made from a material that seemed to bend light around its edges. "Dr. Chun," the woman said, standing with a warm smile. "My name is Director Elizabeth Hayes. I represent an organization you've never heard of, working with technology you've just begun to understand, preparing for a war that officially doesn't exist." Sarah found her voice. "Who are you?" Director Hayes gestured to the chair, and it dissolved into particles that disappeared completely. "We're the people who've been hiding humanity's real space program for the last 50 years. And thanks to your discovery, we can finally bring you into the fold." She walked to the window overlooking the particle accelerator. "The Galactic Watchers you detected aren't just observing us, Dr. Chun. They're part of something called the Galactic Council, a civilization spanning hundreds of worlds that views humanity as a primitive species not yet ready for contact." Hayes turned back to Sarah. "They're partially correct. Most of humanity isn't ready. But some of us have been preparing for this moment since 1952, when we first detected their surveillance network." Sarah's mind raced. "You've known about them for 70 years? "We've known about them, studied them, learned from them, and, most importantly, prepare for the day they would decide to make contact," Hayes replied. "That day is coming sooner than we hoped." She handed Sarah a device that looked like a simple tablet, but felt impossibly light. "The Council is planning to issue an ultimatum to Earth within the next 6 months. Submit to their authority and accept supervised integration into galactic civilization or face correction." Sarah stared at the device. Correction? Complete replacement of human government and technology with Council-approved systems. Essentially, the end of human independence. Hayes' expression hardened. "The Council has done this to 47 species in the last millennium. They call it guided evolution. We call it conquest." The device in Sarah's hands activated, displaying star maps and technical specifications that defied understanding. But here's what the Council doesn't know. While they've been watching us through conventional space, we've been building a civilization in dark matter space. Ships, weapons, entire cities that exist in the quantum foam between dimensions. Sarah looked up from the device, her worldview crumbling and rebuilding simultaneously. "How is this possible?" Hayes smiled. "Because humans have one advantage the Council never anticipated. We're incredibly good at thinking differently. When we discovered their surveillance network, we didn't try to hide from it. We learned from it. When we found out about dark matter, we didn't just study it. We learned to live in it." The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. "You're telling me that humanity has a secret space fleet made from dark matter?" "Not just a fleet, Dr. Chun. An armada. The largest concentration of dark matter technology in this galaxy. And in 6 months, when the Council arrives to deliver their ultimatum, they're going to discover that the primitive species they've been watching has been watching them right back." Hayes walked toward the door, then paused. "We'd like to offer you a position, Dr. Chun. Your research has accelerated our timeline considerably. The Council has moved up their schedule, which means we need to move up ours." Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "What kind of position?" "Chief Science Officer of the Dark Matter Research Division. Your job would be to solve the one remaining technical challenge before we reveal ourselves to the galaxy." Sarah's heart pounded. "What challenge?" Hayes smiled, and for the first time, Sarah saw something predatory in her expression. "How to make dark matter weapons visible just long enough for our enemies to understand what's killing them." As Director Hayes left the office, Sarah realized she was holding humanity's greatest secret in her hands. The species that the galaxy dismissed as primitive had been building an empire in the shadows of reality itself. And now, she was being invited to help unleash it upon the cosmos. The Galactic Council thought they were about to contact a helpless species ripe for conquest. Instead, they were about to encounter humanity's dark matter armada, built from technologies they couldn't detect, deployed through networks they couldn't perceive, commanded by minds they had never understood. The war for humanity's independence was about to begin, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming. 6 weeks after her recruitment, Sarah Chun found herself standing in what should have been impossible. She was aboard a space station the size of Manhattan, constructed entirely from dark matter, orbiting Earth in a dimension that conventional physics insisted couldn't exist. Through the transparent walls that bent light instead of blocking it, she could see Earth below, oblivious to the massive infrastructure that had been built around it over the past 5 decades. Director Hayes led her through corridors filled with technology that made CERN's most advanced equipment look like stone tools. Dark matter wasn't just the construction material here. It was the power source, the computing substrate, the communication medium, and the foundation for weapon systems that could reshape reality at the quantum level. "Welcome to Haven Station Alpha," Hayes said as they entered the main command center. "The first of 12 dark matter installations we built around Earth. From here, we coordinate operations across the entire solar system." The command center stretched out before them like the bridge of a ship from humanity's most ambitious science fiction, except this was real. Holographic displays showed tactical positions throughout local space, while teams of technicians operated control systems that responded to thought as much as touch. But what captured Sarah's attention were the other figures moving through the facility. They weren't all human. "Director Hayes," Sarah said carefully, "who are the others?" Hayes followed her gaze to a group of tall, elegant beings with crystalline skin that refracted light into rainbow patterns. "Ah, you've noticed our allies. Meet the Etherian delegation. They're refugees from Council space, one of the species that refused guided evolution about 300 years ago." One of the Etherians approached, moving with fluid grace that suggested their biology was fundamentally different from human anatomy. When it spoke, its voice carried harmonics that resonated in Sarah's bones. "Dr. Chun, we have followed your research with great interest. Your discovery of the Council surveillance network was the confirmation we needed that humanity was ready for the truth." Sarah found her voice. Ready for what truth? The Etherian's crystalline features shifted into what might have been a smile. That the Galactic Council is not a government. It is a parasite, a civilization that has consumed 47 species and grown fat on their stolen innovations. "We are the immune system this galaxy has been waiting for." Hayes gestured for them to continue walking. The Etherians weren't the first species to resist the Council, but they were the first to escape intact. They've been hiding in dark matter space for centuries, waiting for a species with the right combination of innovation and stubbornness to join the resistance. They entered a vast chamber where the walls displayed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Thousands of stars were marked with different colored indicators, showing the extent of Council territory, resistance movements, and something else that made Sarah's breath catch: dark matter installations. Hundreds of them, scattered throughout the galaxy like a hidden immune system. "This is the invisible network," Hayes explained. "Every species that has resisted Council conquest has contributed to it. The Etherians provided the foundational technology. The Nexari contributed quantum manipulation techniques. The Void Touch shared interdimensional engineering. And humanity, what did humanity contribute?" Sarah asked. A new voice answered from behind them. "Weaponization." Sarah turned to see a man in his 60s approaching, wearing the uniform of the United States Space Force. But this wasn't the Space Force she knew about. The insignia on his uniform included symbols that didn't exist in any Earth military. "Dr. Chun, meet Admiral Marcus Webb, commander of the Terra Defense Network," Hayes said. "He's been overseeing humanity's military contributions to the resistance." Admiral Webb extended his hand. "Dr. Chun, your work is about to become very important to the survival of free civilizations throughout this galaxy." Sarah shook his hand, noting the calluses that spoke of hands-on technical work. "Admiral, Director Hayes mentioned that humanity's contribution was weaponization. What did she mean? Webb gestured to the galactic display. Every other species in the Resistance focused on hiding from the Council, building bigger shields, better camouflage, more effective escape routes. They were thinking defensively. He manipulated the display, zooming in on Council territory. Humans took one look at the situation and asked a different question. How do we kill something that spans half the galaxy? The display shifted, showing Council fleets, administrative centers, and resource extraction facilities, all of them surrounded by innocuous-looking clouds of interstellar dust. That's not dust, Webb continued. Those are dark matter weapons platforms, self-replicating, self-targeting, and completely invisible to Council sensors. We've been seeding them throughout Council space for 20 years. Sarah stared at the display in horror and awe. How many? Current count is approaching 10 million platforms, Webb replied matter-of-factly. Each one capable of destabilizing matter at the molecular level across a volume of space roughly equivalent to a small moon. The Etherian spoke up, its harmonics carrying what sounded like approval. This is why we chose humanity for partnership. Other species ask, how do we survive? Humans ask, how do we win? Hayes led them to a smaller chamber where a holographic briefing was in progress. The speaker was another human, but one wearing a uniform Sarah didn't recognize. The insignia suggested naval rank, but the ship classifications being discussed didn't match any Earth technology. Current Dark Fleet composition includes 47 heavy destroyers, 12 battle carriers, and 1 dreadnought, the officer was saying. All vessels are fully staffed and operational in dark matter space. Estimated time to full tactical deployment is 18 hours. Sarah interrupted. Dark Fleet. The briefing officer looked to Hayes, who nodded. Dr. Chun, meet Captain Rodriguez, commanding officer of the HDMS Invisible Dawn, our first dark matter dreadnought. Captain Rodriguez was a woman in her 40s with the bearing of someone accustomed to absolute authority in life-or-death situations. Dr. Chun, we've been following your research. Your modifications to our sensor arrays have increased our detection range by 300%. Sarah felt the weight of implication settling on her shoulders. How long has humanity been building a secret space navy? Officially? About 30 years, Hayes replied. Unofficially, we started planning it the day we confirmed that the Council existed. Admiral Webb manipulated another holographic display, showing ship designs that looked like nothing Sarah had ever imagined. Dark matter warships that could phase between dimensions, weapons that could target enemies across interstellar distances, and defensive systems that could hide entire fleets in the quantum foam between realities. The beauty of dark matter technology, Webb explained, is that it's not just invisible to Council sensors. It's immune to most of their weapons. Council military doctrine is based on conventional matter interactions. They're like an army equipped to fight with swords facing an enemy with plasma rifles. The Etherian's crystalline features shifted again. Your species approaches warfare with a creativity that we find both admirable and terrifying. The Council has no experience facing an enemy that fights from dimensions they cannot perceive. Sarah walked to one of the viewing ports, looking out at Earth spinning peacefully below. How many people know about this? On Earth? About 50,000, Hayes replied. Scientists, engineers, military personnel, and their families. Everyone involved in the construction and operation of the dark matter infrastructure. And the rest of humanity? They'll find out in about 4 months when the Council fleet arrives in our solar system, Admiral Webb said grimly. The Council is sending a diplomatic vessel escorted by a full battle fleet. 27 ships carrying enough firepower to crack planets. Captain Rodriguez activated a new display showing the approaching Council fleet. Intelligence suggests they're planning to arrive just outside Earth's orbital space and broadcast their ultimatum to the entire planet simultaneously. Classic Council intimidation protocol. Sarah studied the tactical display. What happens when they arrive? Hayes smiled, and Sarah realized she was seeing the expression that would soon be directed at the galaxy's most powerful military force. They're going to discover that the primitive species they came to conquer has been preparing a welcome party for the last 50 years. Webb pointed to indicators showing the positions of hidden dark matter installations throughout the solar system. The moment they drop out of faster-than-light travel, they'll be surrounded by weapons they can't detect, platforms they can't target, and ships they can't see. But here's the beautiful part, Hayes added. We're not going to attack them immediately. We're going to let them deliver their ultimatum. Let them make their threats. Let them demonstrate their weapons and show Earth exactly what submission to Council authority would mean. The Ethereans' harmonics took on what sounded like anticipation. And then we're going to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity, Admiral Webb replied. Every Council ship in our solar system will be destroyed simultaneously. Not by weapons they can understand, but by technologies that will rewrite their understanding of warfare itself. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's temperature. What about the rest of the Council, when their fleet doesn't return? Hayes gestured to the galactic map, where thousands of hidden weapons platforms waited in dark matter space. That's where the real war begins. The Council has spent millennia building an empire based on the assumption that they face only conventional threats. They've never fought an enemy that could strike from dark matter space. Captain Rodriguez pulled up another tactical display. Our deep reconnaissance probes have identified every major Council military installation, administrative center, and resource extraction facility in this galactic arm. The moment we engage their fleet in our solar system, Phase 2 begins, which is simultaneous attacks on Council infrastructure across 300 light-years of space, Admiral Webb explained. We won't just be destroying their fleet. We'll be crippling their ability to respond. The magnitude of what humanity had built in secret struck Sarah like a physical blow. You're talking about a galactic war. We're talking about galactic liberation, the Etherean corrected. The Council has held 47 species in technological and cultural bondage for over a millennium. Your species has provided the tools necessary to break those chains. Hayes walked to the Central Command Console. Dr. Chun, your role in this operation is crucial. The weapon systems we've developed are incredibly powerful, but they have one limitation. Dark matter weapons are invisible to all conventional sensors, including our own targeting systems once they're deployed. Sarah began to understand. You need a way to make dark matter briefly visible for targeting verification. Exactly. We can destroy any target in the galaxy, but we need to be absolutely certain we're hitting the right targets. Civilian populations, neutral species, resistant cells, we need to distinguish between them and Council military assets with perfect accuracy. Captain Rodriguez activated a holographic workspace around Sarah. Your research into dark matter particle interactions is the foundation for our targeting solution. We need you to develop a method for selectively revealing dark matter weapons just long enough for target confirmation. Sarah studied the technical specifications floating around her. The weapons were elegant in their simplicity and terrifying in their implications. Each platform could destabilize matter across vast distances, essentially causing targeted objects to cease existing at the molecular level. How much time do I have? The Council fleet will arrive in 14 weeks, Admiral Webb replied. We need working prototypes in 12. As Sarah began working through the quantum equations necessary for selective dark matter revelation, she realized that humanity's secret war against the Galactic Council was about to become very public. The species that had been dismissed as primitive was about to demonstrate that underestimation could be fatal on a galactic scale. The Council was expecting to find a defenseless world ready for conquest. Instead, they were about to encounter humanity's dark matter armada, backed by a hidden alliance of species who had been waiting centuries for someone with the audacity to fight back. The galaxy was about to discover that humans had been preparing for this war longer than the Council had been planning their conquest. The Council fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at precisely 0800 hours Greenwich Mean Time, appearing in Earth's solar system like a constellation of metal stars. 27 ships, each one larger than Earth's biggest cities, arranged themselves in a perfect sphere around the inner solar system. Their hulls gleamed with exotic materials that bent light around them, and their weapon systems pulsed with energies that made Earth's nuclear arsenals look like firecrackers. On every human communication device across the planet, the same message appeared simultaneously in every language. Citizens of Earth, you have been selected for integration into the Galactic Council. Prepare for the arrival of your new administrators. But in the hidden command centers of Haven Station Alpha, humanity's real leadership was watching something the Council fleet couldn't see. Dark matter sensors showed that the moment the Council ships had entered normal space, they had been surrounded by weapons platforms that had been waiting in quantum superposition for exactly this moment. Status report. Admiral Webb commanded from the primary tactical center. Captain Rodriguez's voice came through the communication system from the bridge of the HDMS Invisible Dawn. All Dark Fleet vessels report ready. We have positive targeting locks on every Council ship. Dark matter weapons platforms are armed and positioned. Dr. Chen's targeting solution is operational. Sarah stood at her workstation, hands trembling slightly as she watched the culmination of 12 weeks of the most intensive research of her life. Her selective revelation system could make dark matter weapons visible for exactly 0.3 seconds, long enough for human operators to confirm targets, but too brief for Council sensors to detect the energy signatures. Director Hayes, Sarah said, the quantum resonance fields are stable. We can initiate selective revelation on your command. Hayes stood at the center of the command platform, watching multiple displays that showed Council fleet positions, Earth's defensive networks, and something else that made Sarah's heart race. Resistance cells throughout the galaxy, all connected through the dark matter communication network, all waiting for the signal that would begin the largest military operation in galactic history. All stations, this is Director Hayes. Operation Revelation is now active. Admiral Webb, you may proceed with Phase 1. Admiral Webb activated the main communication array. Council Fleet, this is Admiral Marcus Webb of the Terra Defense Network. We need to discuss your recent message to Earth. The response came from the largest Council ship, its signal carrying the authority of a civilization that had never been challenged. Unidentified vessel. You will identify yourself immediately. No human military force is authorized to operate in this system. Webb smiled grimly. That's interesting because we've been operating in this system for 50 years and you never noticed us. On Sarah's display, she watched as targeting locks appeared on every Council vessel. Dark matter weapons, invisible to all Council sensors, were aimed at critical systems throughout their fleet. Council Fleet Commander, you are surrounded by 47 human warships and approximately 3,000 weapons platforms. Your sensors cannot detect us because we operate in dark matter space, using technologies your species has never encountered. The communication channel filled with what sounded like disbelief. Impossible. Human technology is primitive. Our surveillance indicates you have barely achieved interplanetary flight. Your surveillance, Webb replied, has been watching our decoy civilization for the last 70 years while we built our real infrastructure in dimensions you didn't know existed. Would you like a demonstration? Hayes nodded to Sarah. Dr. Chun, initiate selective revelation. Show them one weapons platform. Sarah activated her targeting system, and on the display, a dark matter weapons platform became visible for exactly 0.3 seconds, appearing next to the Council's flagship like a metal flower blooming from nothing. The platform was the size of a small city, bristling with weapon systems that existed partially outside normal space-time. The Council communication channel erupted in what sounded like panic. Command, we have an unidentified massive structure that appeared from nowhere. Energy readings are off our charts. That was one weapons platform, Webb transmitted calmly. We have 3,000 of them positioned throughout your fleet. Each one is capable of destabilizing matter at the molecular level across a sphere of space approximately 1 kilometer in diameter. Director Hayes stepped up to the communication array. Council Fleet, this is Director Elizabeth Hayes, representing the Terra Defense Network and the Galactic Resistance Coalition. Your ultimatum to Earth has been noted and rejected. We have a counterproposal. The Council Commander's voice carried the first hint of uncertainty. You will state your terms. Complete withdrawal from this solar system and immediate cessation of all hostile activities against independent species throughout the galaxy. In exchange, we will allow your fleet to return to Council space with a message for your leadership. Unacceptable. The Galactic Council does not negotiate with primitive species. Hayes looked around the command center at the faces of humans, Etherians, and representatives of 6 other resistant species. Admiral Webb, I think it's time we educated the Council about exactly how primitive we are. Webb activated tactical displays throughout the command center. Dr. Chun, initiate full revelation protocol. Show them what they're really facing. Sarah's hands moved across her control interface with practiced precision. Across the solar system, dark matter weapons platforms began revealing themselves in carefully timed sequences. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of installations became visible, surrounding the Council fleet in a sphere of firepower that defied their understanding of human capabilities. But that wasn't the shocking part. On the long-range displays, similar revelations were occurring throughout Council space. The hidden weapons platforms that humanity had been seeding through dark matter networks for 20 years were making themselves known simultaneously across hundreds of star systems. Council military installations, administrative centers, and resource extraction facilities found themselves surrounded by weapons they couldn't detect, couldn't understand, and couldn't defend against. Council Fleet, Hayes transmitted, you are looking at approximately 10,000 visible weapons platforms in this solar system alone. What you cannot see are the additional 50,000 platforms that remain in dark matter space, along with the complete Terra Defense Fleet. The Council Commander's voice had lost all authority. This is impossible. No species has ever developed such technology. You're correct, replied the Etherian representative, its harmonic voice joining the communication. No single species has developed such technology. The Galactic Resistance Coalition represents the combined technological advancement of 13 species that refused your guided evolution. Humans provided the weaponization expertise, but the foundational technologies came from civilizations you thought you had destroyed. Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled through the command center. Admiral Webb, Council Fleet is attempting to charge weapons systems. Their shield generators are powering up. Target their primary weapons arrays, Webb commanded. Dr. Chun, partial demonstration. Make it clear that their shields are irrelevant. Sarah activated a dozen weapons platforms positioned around the Council flagship. Dark matter beams, invisible to Council sensors, but devastating to conventional matter, passed harmlessly through the flagship's shields and selectively disintegrated specific components of their weapon systems. The Council's most powerful ship was suddenly defenseless, its primary armaments simply ceasing to exist at the molecular level. Your shields, Hayes explained calmly, are designed to deflect energy and matter. Dark matter weapons exist in quantum superposition until the moment of impact, meaning they phase through conventional defenses like they don't exist. The Council communication channel filled with background chatter that sounded increasingly desperate. Council Fleet, this is Command. Report your status immediately. Webb stepped back up to the communication array. Council Command, this is Admiral Webb. Your fleet is currently intact, but completely defenseless. Every ship in this system is surrounded by weapons that can destroy them without triggering a single one of their defensive systems. We are prepared to negotiate, came the reply from the Council Fleet Commander. No, Hayes responded firmly. Negotiation time ended when you entered our solar system with weapons charged and threats ready. You will now listen to our terms for your survival. She activated a display showing Council territory throughout the galaxy. Red indicators mark the locations of hidden human weapons platforms, and there were thousands of them. Over the last 20 years, the Terra Defense Network has placed approximately 10 million dark matter weapons platforms throughout Council space. Every major military installation, every administrative center, every resource extraction facility is now targeted by weapons you cannot detect or defend against. The magnitude of the operation struck even Sarah with renewed force. Humanity hadn't just been preparing to defend Earth. They had been preparing to liberate the entire galaxy. Your options are simple, Hayes continued. Option 1, immediate withdrawal of all Council forces from the solar system and cessation of hostile activities against all independent species. Your empire continues to exist, but your expansion ends here. And option 2, asked the Council commander. We demonstrate why 47 species chose submission over extinction, Admiral Webb replied grimly. Every Council military asset in this galactic arm ceases to exist simultaneously. We're talking about the complete collapse of your civilization's ability to project force beyond your core worlds. The communication channel went silent for nearly 10 minutes. When it reopened, the voice that spoke carried the authority of the highest levels of Council leadership. This is Supreme Council Administrator Thane. We are prepared to discuss terms. Hayes smiled coldly. Administrator Thane, you misunderstand. These aren't negotiating terms. These are conditions for your survival. You have 1 hour to begin withdrawing all Council forces from the solar system. You have 72 hours to transmit orders for the cessation of all hostile activities against independent species. And if we refuse? Sarah watched as targeting solutions appeared for every Council ship in the system and every major Council installation within 300 light-years. The scope of humanity's secret military operation was beyond anything she had imagined possible. If you refuse, Hayes replied, you'll discover why the species you dismissed as primitive spent 50 years preparing for this conversation. Admiral Webb activated another display showing the full scope of the Galactic Resistance Coalition. 13 species, operating from dark matter installations throughout the galaxy, all connected by communication networks the Council had never suspected existed. Administrator Thane, your civilization has ruled this galaxy for over a millennium based on technological superiority and military intimidation. Today, you've encountered a species that doesn't respond to intimidation and has developed technologies that make your military advantage irrelevant. The Etherean representative added its harmonic voice to the communication. The age of Council expansion ends today. The age of galactic liberation begins. On the tactical displays, Sarah watched as the Council fleet began powering down their weapons systems. Ship by ship, the most powerful military force in the galaxy was acknowledging defeat without firing a single shot. Council fleet is standing down, Captain Rodriguez reported. They're requesting permission to withdraw to the outer system. Hayes looked around the command center at the representatives of species who had been waiting centuries for this moment. Permission granted, but Administrator Thane, understand this clearly. Earth is now under the protection of the Galactic Resistance Coalition. Any future hostile action against this world or any independent species will result in the immediate activation of the weapons platforms we've placed throughout your territory. We understand, came the reply. As the Council fleet began withdrawing to the outer solar system, Sarah realized that humanity had just announced its presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. The species that had been dismissed as primitive had revealed themselves as the architects of the largest resistance movement in galactic history. But more than that, they had demonstrated something that would echo throughout the cosmos for millennia. When faced with extinction, humans didn't just fight back. They prepared, they planned, they built weapons from the shadows of reality itself, and turned the galaxy's greatest strength against it. The Council had never seen it coming because they were looking in the wrong dimension. While they watched humanity's conventional development, the real human civilization had been growing in dark matter space, building technologies that existed outside the Council's understanding of physics. And now, as the most powerful military force in the galaxy retreated from a single solar system, the rest of the galaxy was receiving a message that would change everything. Humanity was no longer hiding. The age of council dominance was over, and the species they had dismissed as primitive had just become the galaxy's new apex predator. The Galactic Council never saw it coming. But then, again, they were never meant to. Humans had learned long ago that the best victory was the one where your enemy never realized they were in a fight until it was already over. The war for galactic freedom had begun and ended in the same moment, decided not by superior firepower, but by superior thinking. And as the Council fleet disappeared into faster-than-light travel, carrying news of their defeat back to their core worlds, Sarah realized that humanity's greatest victory wasn't the technology they had built. It was the fact that they had changed the rules of warfare itself, fighting a battle in dimensions their enemies didn't know existed, using strategies their foes couldn't comprehend, achieving victory through methods that redefined what was possible. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.